What is going on, guys? Noah Brewer here, back again with another video, and you already read the title, so let's get straight to the sauce. So I'll show you my screen and show you kind of what we're going over in this video. We're going over how I was able to scale this brand from nothing to a $450,000 month in under a year. Actually, technically, it was from under 2 months from the time that I stepped in. So it was actually a little bit more than 450, maybe it was like 475. You can see TikTok Shop here, we did 65,000 during this time, and then Shopify, we did another 416,000. So you could do the math there. And then basically what we're working with is, month of September, very, very slow, barely, scraping by. I think we were just spending $50 a month on ads, something like that. And then we were able to scale it pretty quickly, especially considering, this product is, made in the US. Like we literally went from a $20K month to $250,000 month, and then another $250,000 month right after. And if you're wondering like, oh, what is the $450,000 month? It's like mid-month because we had to scale it up and then we kind of had to scale it down. We were scaling it up in the beginning of November. So, from the middle of November to the middle of December, that's when we were able to surpass the 450K in the 30 days. So another thing that I would love to say is if you want the full story and the full context on how I scaled this brand from, $0 to $23,000 per day in year one. And yes, like I said, the brand is a made in USA product. This is not drop shipping. This is a real brand. You can go to the Meeting Millions Discord in the description and go over here to live brand building. You can see the full documentation, literally from when we initially tested the product. Like this is the results when we initially tested the product, all the way down to, like I said, scaling to $23,000 per day, with screenshots, deep explanations of everything that was done to get it to this point. So the first thing that I did when I came into this business and I was like, okay, I really want to make this work and I'm going to give this my all. I went all in. It was just a side hustle before. But when I came in, I was like, I'm going to give this my all and absolutely try to scale this business for quarter four. This was my plan, and I'm showing it on the screen right now. It's very simple. It's a very simple plan, and I kind of veered off it a little bit. Like I didn't fully execute this plan. There's no magical thing that happened here that kind of made me scale that I did, but I'll just kind of walk you through it because I think it would be valuable for some people to hear. So the entire plan of the business was to, number one, expand the sales channels. So we were already on TikTok Shop and we were already on Shopify. So I wanted to get on Amazon, so I also began the process of getting on Amazon around like November-ish. So right when we started scaling, we started looking at getting on Amazon. So I bought a course, seeked out mentorship, learned everything that I could about Amazon. And we actually just shipped out our FBA shipment like this week. So it's been like 4 months that it's taken to like learn this process, get the inventory ready. That's another thing that caused delays. And then also send it out to Amazon and get on there. But during this entire scale period, we're only on Shopify and TikTok Shop. The step number 2 was to create marketing machines under these platforms. So I was not running the TikTok Shop. My business partner, Anthony Napolitano, you could find him, Anthony Naps, on Instagram if you do need help with TikTok Shop. But he was running our TikTok Shop, so I wasn't really worried about that. But even under TikTok Shop, you have TikTok Shop samples. You can hire creators to like post every day. So there's multiple marketing machines under TikTok Shop. You got GMV Max, paid ads. And then same thing with Shopify, like a lot of different marketing machines you can have under Shopify. You can have Facebook ads, you can have Google ads, TikTok ads, influencer marketing, which is one of the ones that we ended up doing pretty well with here, which we'll get into in a minute. And then step number 3 was to kind of expand our product line and, get some more front-end products so that we're not relying on just one product for the entire business. We didn't end up doing that at all. We just stuck with the same product this entire time, mainly because we were like so delayed because we scaled so fast. We weren't really focused on putting out new products. I mean, we did try, but it was just too much going on at once. And then once that was the case, we were going to implement the marketing machine on all the platforms for each of the products. And then, just build systems and teams to automate the business in the meantime. I did execute on this plan. The first thing that I did was I actually started running micro influencers. And the main reason was for, basically just regular word of mouth exposure and also content. So we started sending out products to influencers, and I just made an entire video going over the entire method on how we went from essentially $0 to $1,000 a day just with Instagram influencers, like micro influencers, no ad spend, no nothing like that. So definitely check out that video if you want to see that strategy. But that was like the first little bump that we had in the business. Basically what that did was it caused a little spike of sales, and pretty much right when that happened, our Facebook ads or meta ads actually started to become profitable. So before we're spending like $50 a day, maybe hitting like a 1 to 2 ROAS each day, and it wasn't really able to be scaled. Like anytime we increased the spend, it just wouldn't go anywhere. So it was very frustrating, but as soon as we started running micro influencers, it kind of, I guess it like fed the pixel, or I don't know what happened, but the Facebook ads started popping off. And that's what led us into actually being able to scale on Facebook again. And it's crazy because when we initially launched this product, it was, extremely profitable on meta ads. You can see here that we were doing $500 a day, like on day one, new pixel, new ad account, new product, new store. And we were only spending like $100 to $200 per day at this point. But you can see that it was also in November of the year prior. And if you read this live brand building documentation here, you'll see that our Facebook and our meta ads pretty much sucked for the rest of the year. And this was the first time that they really became profitable again, was after we had the micro influencer post and we already made some sales and got some revenue flowing on the actual website. From there, I was pretty much just, talking with my media buyer, Leighton, who is an old student of mine. He's really, really good at Facebook ads. So he was running our entire meta ads, and I'm really grateful that he was doing that for us because he is not a media buyer. He runs his own brands, and they do extremely well. But it's very, very simple. We were able to trigger the Facebook pixel and begin scaling and pushing spend on the meta pixel. And probably also the timing was like a big part of this, because we weren't like testing creatives crazily. We weren't like doing anything like that. It was the same ad that we were running, for like a year at like $50 a day that ended up scaling and actually taking us to 18K a day just on Meta. And we did another 5 that day on TikTok Shop. So it's the same exact ad. It was just like once we ran the micro influencer, seemed like it kind of sparked it. And then once it sparked it, Meta started being profitable, and we started pushing spend like crazy. So one of the biggest hurdles that we had when we started increasing spend, from 1,000 a day to 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, is basically our product is made in the US and it has a very limited supply chain. Like we buy all the raw materials and then manufacture the product here. So I was spending like a good majority of my days just like on the phone with vendors, just trying to buy the raw materials, and it was insanely hard. Like I remember there were days where I was spending 6 to 8 hours just cold calling manufacturers of the specific raw material, which I'll go over in the live brand building private group. I just don't want to expose the brand and the product like publicly. You could probably find it if you wanted to. It doesn't matter that much. Yeah, this was like our biggest hurdle. And again, I don't think being made in the US is like a huge selling point. It actually makes the logistics pretty messy depending on the product and the distribution process. But for us, in our specific product, it makes sense to have a product that's made in the US, and it is actually a strong selling point if you look at all the other options on the market. So we decided to just stick with it, and we already had all the fulfillment set up, and we were scaling. Like we can't switch supply chain mid-scaling. So, we just stuck with it, but it was a very big hurdle. And, if you look at the live brand building, when we were scaling and like really, really pushing, we were only spending like 3 to 4K a day, and we were getting, 15K back in revenue pretty consistently. Like at least for a month straight, it was like 12 to 15K in revenue off of 3K a day in spend. I really, really wish that if I could go back, this is one of the lessons, but I'll just say it now. If I could go back, then I probably would have scaled a lot harder, even though it would have caused more delays in the actual fulfillment of the products because we were already so delayed from scaling so damn fast. But again, even if you scaled like a dropshipping store this fast, you're probably going to run into logistic issues. We 10x'd our business in 30 days. Like any business that grows that quickly is going to have issues, and we were definitely on the worst end of that in terms of like how we were structured. Like the issues were pretty bad. So that's the reason we didn't scale any higher than like 20K a day. Mainly because we couldn't. Like we were literally selling items that weren't manufactured yet, and we knew that we had the materials on the way. and we knew that, everything was going to be good in a month or two, but we were, kind of selling, and we didn't want to cut the ads because obviously once you have a return like this, you don't want to turn it off. And we actually ended up giving tons and tons of refunds. Like after this scale was over, the ROAS, dipped back down after Christmas, and we ended up just offering like tons of refunds, and we let the customers decide whether they wanted to wait for their product or if they wanted a refund. And I think we gave probably $30,000 worth of refunds during this time, and maybe about a 1,000 free products, because we would also tell them that if they were willing to wait, we'd give them a free product on top of whatever they bought. So we had numerous offers out there. We also refunded a lot of shipping costs. That's pretty much how it went. And dealing with that dilemma of like, you have a 4 ROAS, you're doing 15K a day. How do you decide whether or not you should scale? It's a very complicated, dilemma. Some people, I think, would just full send it and just deal with the consequences later. Whereas I was like a little bit more conservative in my approach, where I still wanted to scale it to a level where we're making a decent amount of money so that we could, kind of recoup some of the losses from ordering the inventory and doing stuff like that. But I also didn't want to scale it like too big to where we could potentially completely destroy our reputation online, because I do plan on running this brand for a while and eventually exiting it, and I don't want to leave it a mess for the next person. Even if we have to make a little bit less money, I think that's okay, because I'm confident this year we'll be more prepared and we'll actually be able to capitalize on this, probably scale it to $50,000 to $100,000 days, this year, if we're actually prepared and we're not super backed up on orders again. So there were a few like really, really good lessons that I picked up from this that I'm going to carry over into my next e-commerce brands, and obviously not make these mistakes again. But the number one thing is probably that unit economics and distribution are extremely important. Like, I think a lot of brand owners, myself included, massively underestimate the importance of having the financials work in terms of like your margins and how much return your money gets when you're buying inventory, and also the actual production and 3PL methods, or whatever method you're using to ship the items to the actual customers. Because we're handmade in the United States, we had supply chain issues, and it also just took a long time to make these things, because it's not on like some conveyor belt. They're actually handmade. And then also our margins were not super great. Like, we were seeing, I think, like a 65% margin, which is not crazy. Like, if you're at scale, I mean, with the ROAS we had, it was fine. But at scale, this is difficult, because, if you're spending 50K a day on Facebook, very rarely are you going to see higher than like a 1.5, 1.6 ROAS. And, this is just going based off of what I've seen from other people spending in that range. So, this business as a whole just doesn't have the best unit economics, and it doesn't have the best distribution system set up. And that's just something that I learned. And when we were doing 20K a day and I was dealing with all of these issues, that's when it set on me like, oh shit, that's why this stuff is so important, because you can't get past 10, 20K a day if you're dealing with supply chain issues, if you're dealing with, super long lead times, if you're dealing with cash issues because, you only have a 50% margin. So to do 200K in revenue, you have to float $100,000. So these are things that I just didn't consider when we started the brand. We were just kind of chasing something that sold, and that's all we really cared about. But in terms of scaling a really big brand, there's way more to it. The other thing that I learned is, just to believe in myself and how to like put my dick on the table, because part of the reason we were so delayed is because we were not prepared to do that level of scale. And based on the level of scale and the return, we could have actually scaled much higher than we did. And the reason we were so delayed and why we couldn't scale higher is because we didn't place the inventory order quick enough. And the reason we didn't do that is because we didn't believe in ourselves. And I'm saying we because I do have a partner on this business, but mainly it was me. Mainly it was me calling the shots at this time. And, I didn't want to take, a multi-six-figure risk when I didn't have, the stats to back it up. So I'm the kind of guy that like goes and gets the stats, and then I'll take the risk. I don't really like taking risks before getting the stats, but looking back, I should have just believed in myself, because I think that held me back a lot more than it would have if I had just sent it, even if I like half sent it, it would have saved us a lot in delays, and we would have been able to scale much higher. So there's definitely a balance of like risk versus reward, and also just believing in yourself and making that leap. I'd say another great lesson that I learned is during this time we were ordering like a ton of inventory, and we ended up ordering way more inventory than we needed. So now, that sales have slowed down after quarter four. It's a very big quarter four product. The projections were just off. Like we were kind of expecting, well, it was like 50-50 on whether or not the sales in the ROAS was going to continue, January, February. Now we're in March, and it definitely didn't. So now we're basically just floating all of this inventory when we could be using that money for marketing, or releasing new products to expand our product line and all these other things. So that's another big lesson too, is like we also overhired a little bit. So whenever you scale really, really fast, like I said, in e-commerce, you're probably going to overstock an inventory if you weren't prepared ahead of time, and you're probably going to overhire. So the last 2 months, I've pretty much just been cleaning up that mess, and we're still sitting on tons and tons of inventory. I mean, it is ridiculous the amount of inventory that we are floating right now, and our ads are actually starting to pick back up right now, so it's fine, and it will be fine because we're going to scale again this year. It's just an annoyance, and again, the money can be used in a better place. So this quarter four, I'm definitely going to manage my inventory a lot better and try not to go into quarter one with like this huge overstock. And the last lesson that I think would be extremely valuable here to share is to plant seeds and make moves when things are really, really good. So basically, when we were like peaking, right, like 20K days, very, very good ROAS, very, very high profitability, I wish that I was spending a lot more time trying to get on Amazon and trying to move forward on, for example, Amazon. That's like the best example I can think of. And the reason for this is because there would have been a lot of spillover traffic, like people that saw our meta ad and then went over to Amazon and bought on Amazon, which would have made it a ton easier to get our first orders and reviews in. Whereas now, the brand is, kind of like, it's not popping at like 20K days. So, and there will still be spillover traffic. Like it's not cooked. It's not too late. It's never too late. We're actually seeing like a 3 ROAS right now and starting to increase spend, and it's starting to maintain. So I'm sure that we'll be fine. But again, if I could go back, I would have planted more seeds when things were good, because it would have just made those seeds sprout quicker, I think. And that's another really, really big takeaway that I had here. So if you want to see the entire breakdown and every little detail that we did to take this brand from 0 to 23K a day in year 1, then join the Discord. The link is in the description, and you can just read the whole thing right here. And you can even talk to me about it in the group chat as well. And if you want to learn about the influencer marketing, check out the other video. But that's pretty much it for this video. I hope that you got at least one or good takeaway. That's my goal for these videos, is for you to walk away and at least be like, okay, I have something to ponder about. I have something to think about, and hopefully it plants subconscious seeds that sprout in your near future that actually help you scale your brand and help you make more money in somehow. So that's it for this video. This is Noah Brewer, and I'm out. Peace.